The year that wasn't.
Hi, this is me, Jane from 94.3 Radio 1, and this is the Varun Maya. Did I get your name right, man?
Yeah, loud and clear.
I've been following you for a while thanks to a common friend of ours. His name is Tanmay.
Oh, interesting.
But yeah, I really, really love your work, and I've been following you for a whole bit, and you're part of this crazy thing we're doing, which is called The Year That Wasn't. Thanks so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
All right, the year that wasn't, but I think that it was the year that was for you, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was surprising in a lot of ways for us. But yeah, I mean, we didn't feel a lack of anything. You adapt, right? I mean, that's what humans do.
Absolutely. And the adapting when it comes to the digital world, like I was just reading this little article about how, companies like Microsoft and Google and, a lot of them have actually explosively grown. So the digital world just seems to have like taken a huge leap of faith, and you're with that, you're riding that wave. So tell us about what has it been for people in the digital entrepreneurship space?
Sure. So, I think I started my first like serious company like 5 or 6 years ago. And when I did, I wanted to be very digital, right? I didn't want to have like too many humans around. I want to be like a small team, like 8, 10, 15 people, and just run it like that. But I feel like at that point, I was too early. In the sense, a lot of the things that I was saying that, hey, everyone's going to live on the internet most of the time, sounded like complete baloney at that point. And people was just like, no, right? This is the human world. We go out, we look at trees, we, take a walk. I was like, yeah, sure, that's all great. But I think that eventually people are going to spend this second digital life online. And people didn't believe me at that point. But today things have changed. And I think obviously the virus accelerated that. But I feel it's more like human brains have this incredible ability to adapt. We can adapt to any situation, right? I'll give you the difference between us and say a giraffe. When a giraffe gives birth, the baby giraffe wakes up and within a few hours it can start running. Whereas a human baby, the minute it kind of pops out, it's basically for like the next 2 or 3 years, it's like an alarm. It's just a very loud alarm, right? And the reason for that is because humans are not hardwired, right? Many animals are, many animals in the mammalian kingdom are, but humans are not hardwired. We're adaptable wired. Like you wouldn't, a rhino can't adapt to the tundra, but the human body can. Like we can adapt to any place. We have Eskimos, we have people here, we have people maybe, right next to the equator who are like sitting at like 45, 50 degrees the entire time. So essentially we're adaptable. But what people kind of forgot is that we're also adaptable when it comes to a digital environment, right? And it can kind of become one with how you perform like on a daily basis. Now people like a remote worker can just sit on his computer like 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. in the morning, start work, log off at 8 in the evening. It's become normal. All social interaction happens on the screen. And again, we didn't have this when we were young. So it's not like a very integral part of our nervous system. But kids, like really young kids, and I'm talking about Gen Z and even lower, they've adapted. Like they sit on like apps like Discord like 8, 10 hours a day, right? So they know what's up. They're sitting on Fortnite. They use games, like we use games to play. They use games to socialize. So it's a different world. And yeah, I keep joking that eventually it's evolved into the world that I always believed would come out.
Well, I met a 6-year-old recently, and very cute little boy, and he's already teaching coding to kids who are younger than him. He sets up his mom's Zoom calls or whatever it is that needs to be done at the house, pretty much like the man of the house when it comes to technology. So you're right. I mean, we're seeing kids literally like, born with iPads or whatever it is when they're coming out of the womb. Yeah. So yeah, I guess that adaptation is happening. You're part of this wave, this new wave. Tell us, Varun, I was just watching a couple of your videos, like your introduction videos, as to how you were one of the youngest Indian entrepreneurs to be funded by a venture capitalist. You've built this community of around 45,000 people, and everyone is learning how to be adaptable in the digital age. I was speaking to a content creator, in the fashion and lifestyle space yesterday, who said, today, if you don't have a gig and a side gig that's both digital, especially if you're a content creator and you don't understand the nuances of your business and how you create your niche, it's really really difficult. So tell us, this is an entirely new world, and you have an entirely new set of prospects. Forget, at least my generation of engineer versus doctor versus something creative. Today, we're coming to whatever it is that is you're in the pursuit of. There's so much more that you can do. There's so many more options, from a visual effects and gaming perspective, and generally from the digital world perspective. What are the opportunities that it presents?
Sure. So you're right. I think the option pool is now everything that a human being can do because it's now all serviced over the internet. Look, a lot of people say that, hey, like, what about fixing a telephone pole? Like somebody actually has to climb up and like fix it, right? What about that? Is that going to be disrupted by the digital world? And the answer to those questions is also yes. Like there's tech now where you can just hold an Xbox controller. You on your screen, you see the camera view of a small robot, and you can move the robot around, make it climb up the telephone pole, and fix it without any potential injury to self. Right. So now everything is going to be digital. We're going to have like this body double for a lot of the manual workers. They're going to have body doubles in the real world, and it's not science fiction. It's not like 10, 15 years away. It's like 4 or 5 years away. The tech's already there. It's just commercializing it takes time. Takes time to get it to a price point that everyone can kind of enjoy, or rather, everyone has access to. But hey, I think I've spoken about this. I think doing VFX, I mean that's more in the entertainment domain, right? VFX, games, building experience for other people. It can be as simple as, hey, here's a driving experience of a Jaguar or like a Mercedes. You can drive it in VR. You know what it feels like now. Now you can, and so you don't need to test drive it in real life. So if you want to order it, just press the button at the top right. So it could be as simple as that to whole scale games like GTA or multiplayer games like Counter Strike, whatever. Those are more entertainment. So we're also seeing the same VR technology being used in, say, medicine. Right? It's very easy. Instead of me pulling out like the 100th cadaver, right, for a student to operate on, I can instead just say, put on these VR goggles. Now, here's this body in the virtual world. It's exactly the same as a real body. You can control like this virtual scalpel, and you can like now manipulate this how you see fit. And hey, you screwed up once, it's okay. Next, you screw up again. Okay, we'll give you the next kind of body. So I feel like it disrupts all industries, and everything is pretty much going to be virtual. There's only one downside to this, though.
There is a
The
downside.
Yeah, there's a very big downside to this.
Okay,
The
do let.
downside is now, like in the past, like say 1800s, right? And I think 1820s when the industrial revolution like really started. Say you're a kid on a farm, right? Because agriculture was really popular back then. You turn
Right.
back to your mom. You turn back to your mom and say, "Hey, mom, I want to go to a factory. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's a new factory down the road. We've been farming for generations. Can I go?" And mom's like, "No, we understand agriculture really well. We've been doing it for 5, 10 generations. Why do you want to ruin this and go and work in a factory where there are n number of unknowns?"
Right.
The thing there is who you're competing with for that factory job, right? You're competing with, say, Rahul down the road or Ramesh, on the other side of the street. But today, if you want to be a YouTuber, how many people are you competing with? You're
There's a
essentially competing with the entire world, right? So the jungle is very large. And the way the power law here states that one guy can now have like 1 million people following him or 2 million people following him. Whereas there are 1 million people with just one person following them, right? So unless you get to the top, you don't really make, if obviously if you get to the top, you make a lot of money. But if you don't get to the top, you don't make any money. So it's either like all or nothing sort of scenario. I think that's what venture capital does as well, right? It even with entrepreneurs now, even though you could build a small sustainable business, a lot of people like, I want to play the all or nothing game. Because eventually the small businesses are going to be disrupted by the larger ones, right? Because they're
or when-
expanding
yeah,
everywhere,
yeah, or
eaten up
bottom.
essentially,
Right.
right? So I feel like it's a very competitive world now. You're competing against everyone.
That brings me to the next question. I mean, the pandemic actually taught us that a lot of content can be made from your bedroom, wherever the hell you're sitting, right? Now, that's something that we've seen, and we've seen this in literally every sector. You look at beauty, you look at gaming, you look at, random stuff that you can vlog about. You look at VFX, gaming. I'm sure in every vertical, there are different people who've come in, and you've said it's competitive, and we've seen it, right? what does one do when one does not have the number advantage in the digital game, right? I mean, yes, it's an obstacle. Yes, it's a problem. It's an all or nothing sort of a situation. But I also feel because of this excessive competition, there could be a lot of mental health issues. I see that with a lot of young people who are like, I have 1 million followers, or I have 100K. What, bro? You just have like, like 10 followers or 100 followers. And this causes a lot of mental stress. And do you think this is a real problem? This is going to be a real problem for non-digital creators who still want to live a life that's unplugged. Is that something that's going to go away? Like, for example, you're talking about that farm and agriculture. What happens to, say, a wine connoisseur whose job is just to be there and do that job? Are these jobs going to be forgotten, or are they going to be twisted and reformatted, and everybody has to join the digital game whether they like it or not?
Yeah, I think everybody has to join the digital game because look, when you sell something, right, essentially you need to do two things. A, obviously you need to make money, you need to collect a check. But the step before that is you actually have to gain somebody's attention enough for them to at least listen to you. So
Right.
what started happening is there's this attention collapse, right? And you've seen it with platforms like YouTube when it first came out, 1 hour long videos. Then you had Instagram with its like 1 minute long videos. Now you
Now it's
have
30
TikTok
seconds.
and Reels, yeah, like with 30 seconds. And then
Yeah.
next you'll have like 5 seconds and then 1.5 seconds. So people are consuming a lot of information, but they're not really spending any time on this information, right? And
Right.
I feel like if you're a store where you want to sell maybe some handcrafted wooden stuff, it's not that you're in the past you were only competing with the five other wooden stores, right? People selling some handcrafts, but now you're actually competing with the other guy who's also selling organic food, and the other guy, on the next website who's selling, backpacks, right? So it's like this cross competitive grab for attention that's starting to ruin, like, smaller businesses. And to answer your first question of what about like people and their mental health, right? Like, because not everyone can get to 1 million followers, not everyone can get to 100K. It's I mean, almost impossible, as you know. I think the better solution to this, or rather the issue with this, is that look, the human brain, we stack rank ourselves, right? When we get into a room, you're always doing this. You're always like, at least, that's how it used to happen in the old world. Is like, okay, what rank am I? Your brain doesn't give you an accurate rank. It doesn't say you're number four, but like has a vague idea, right? Either you're top dog in the room, or hey, you're in a room where you don't know nothing and probably you're alien there. Um, but in the social world, what happens is you're always going to be like at the bottom of the stack, right? Because your feed is such that you only see people who have like 1 million followers or 100K followers, because that's how the
Right.
algorithm works, right? So imagine this, right? All your life, you're only thrown into rooms where you have no capability to express yourself. Like everybody else is on top of you, and you're just like struggling. So that's, I think, the primary driver of why we have mental health issues. Disconnecting and living a life offline, I think, is still very valuable as long as you have some way to gain attention even while you're doing that. And there are ways to do that. There are complex ways to do that, but it's possible.
I saw one way that you did it. You went off the internet for a while and then you came back with this video, and I thought it was a very cool video. You're fighting yourself, and I also read the comments, and a lot of people were like, just pretty amazed because you're not talking about a movie that you're getting to watch. It's not like, the latest VFX that you see in a Hollywood movie, but you're actually seeing this in real life, and you're competing with yourself. And it was just so fun. But you think this virtual and real world coming together is going to happen like super soon? And because of this pandemic, I know a lot of my friends, for example, have done a lot of virtual travel, like, and countries that you could possibly never visit, suddenly you can form a group with people and you can go check it out. You did that video where you are up against yourself and a digital, sort of an avatar. This whole cross pollination of real and virtual, is this going to be the future soon? Because a podcast that I watched of Joe Rogan and Elon Musk talks about the smart link, which is just so interesting that, he says you have a phone in your hand, which is already extended artificial intelligence, and now you're going to put it in your brain. So everybody is going to be as smart. So what is this future going to look like? Like from this pandemic, in 1 year, everybody's on Zoom calls and virtual tech already. So in the next decade, it's going to be just crazy leaps of faith in this entire world. What's it going to look like?
Well, I have a good hypothesis on what it's going to actually be like. There's this movie called Ready Player One. I'm
Yes.
not sure if you watched it, right? It's this movie about how sometime in the future of the world, we're all going to just wear those headsets and we're going to be
Yeah.
in a different multiplayer world. There's already a game like that. It's called, in the real world right now, it's called VR Chat. You just
Right.
jump in, you can be anybody you want to. You want to be Iron Man? Cool, you can be Iron Man. Like, you can look at your body and you're actually Iron Man, right? You want to be, somebody from the Dragon Ball series, you could be that. You want to be Nelson Mandela, you can be that,
I want to be
right? So
Kim
it's
Kardashian. I can be that.
anything you
Right.
want,
Anybody at
right?
all.
So
Yeah.
there's absolutely no limit to what you can be, and I think the internet allows us to have that pseudonymous identity, right? Which is beyond you. I think that when I look at movies, right, or the concept of movies, for me, it's like a mild version of escapism. Why do we go watch comedy, right? Or why do we go watch somebody else's story?
Right.
Because we sit there, there are mirror neurons in our brain which kind of empathize what another person's doing on screen. We're like, wow. After a while, like maybe an hour in the movie, like especially with a gripping tale, you are that character. You're looking through the shoes. That's why we watch on the big screen. You're living in the shoes of that character, and you live that character's story. Now you can be in the center of things. You put the headset on, you are that character. Now you make the choices. So I feel like games were like this mid stop between movies and VR. Games are a kind of different way to tell stories, but VR is going to be the ultimate way to tell stories. You write the stories. Um, and I feel like the tech's already here. Like, people don't understand that the tech's already here. And I'm talking about even in India, right? We've got the Oculus Quest 2, which came out in India, and obviously there's not too much hype around it, but in the US there are ads running about it, right? So when I first bought VR, I think I paid like a bomb for it. Now it's like one fourth or one fifth of the price in India, and I know a lot of people who spend like half an hour a day, 1 hour a day inside it already. So I don't see that to be a very far. I mean, I can see where it leads to.
I
It
mean,
just needs
mobile
adoption.
phones came to India in the 90s and look at us now. So, I mean, if VR came now, I think in the matter of the next 4, 5 years, everybody is going to be in it and doing it, right?
For sure, for sure. I think I already do, like, once in a while. Like, I'll put it on. I'll just, like, there's this game now. There's this game where you and like four other people who are also in VR are like passing a disc among yourself. It's like air football in like zero gravity. So stuff like
Wow.
that. And I saw, like, this earlier we used to think about gamers as like somebody who sits on a computer. Maybe they have a bag of Cheetos next to them. Maybe a can of Mountain Dew next to them. But now the gamers of the future are going to be very fit, because they're all actually moving their hands and legs in virtual reality. So it's really cool to see. And yeah, I don't think we're going to know the difference, or rather, we might have two identities: one, the real world version of you, and then an online version of you.
I watched
Um,
an episode on Black Mirror where, these two guys in real life are friends. I don't know if you watched that episode, but in their virtual avatars, they are two other avatars who fall in love. And it's so crazy because in real life, they have real partners.
yeah,
We're going to
yeah,
have new, I think, first world problems because of this whole digital identity split where you're not just one person on the internet, but maybe multiple people. And that's something that's great. The year that was in 2020, according to you, what was the biggest story from that year, last year, that you think set the ball rolling for you in a completely different direction?
uh, look, one thing we really learned, at least me personally, was that humans are very community driven, right? We're very tribe driven, right? And contrary to belief, we can have multiple tribes. We can be part of like 4 or 5 different tribes, right? So in the online world, I think Reddit was one of the first true examples of what a tribe was, right? You could join a Reddit, but it was a very low effort kind of tribe. If you
Right.
make it real time and you make it high effort, like high investment, high involvement, what ends up happening is you now feel like you belong, and that's actually a very, very, very good antidote to mental illness, right? So that was a big learning for me, that if you just join a few tribes, spend some time investing, or spend some of your time on that tribe, like make a effort based investment, you'll eventually reap rewards. As in, now you have an ecosystem to rely on, and that like takes away a lot of the loneliness that some people feel. Even though it's digital, it still works.
Absolutely. I mean, instead of looking at it as a problem of like follower count and stuff like that, why not be part of a community that anyway drives the numbers for you? So you're part of a larger initiative. So even if you don't have that 1 million followers, you're still part of an effort and initiative that makes you feel way, bigger than yourself.
Of
That's an
course.
interesting answer to my question from then. Mental health on on the digital platforms is possible to kind of upgrade. My next question here, and this is something that, I saw like pretty much all over your feed with comments. The community that you're building right now has a lot of people who are writing to each other about how to get better jobs, how to not worry about your GPA. You yourself, I saw this post where, your GPA was not as good in college and your teacher said you won't even get an entry level job, but then you went back to the same college and hired thrice, and was all about skill greater than your GPA. So tell us about this community that you're building. That is, and this is something I'm seeing across young people. Like it does not matter. Your grades don't matter. What matters is, you putting yourself out there, networking with the right sort of people, and working in the right sort of atmosphere, which is positive. And the digital world provides that platform for you wherever you're sitting. So tell us about this very interesting thing that has happened from 2020 that paves the way forward for a great set of jobs that are going to be in the market, considering the GDP is not at its best at this point in time, but it's going to only be upwards and onwards from here.
Sure. What I might say might be a little bit controversial. I said this on Twitter as well, and I got like an equal ratio of like positive comments and like negative comments. This is Twitter for you in a nutshell. Essentially, I believe like tier 2 and tier 3 colleges in India, and not all of them, but most of them, they're just like real estate companies like creatively charging rent, right, via fees. So I feel like, I feel in a way, there's no value you gain there. Like you're going, that content's available online, it's available everywhere. Sure, they do a good job of curation maybe, but that's the board's job, like the central board's job. It's not the college's job. So you're going there and you make like some friends. And obviously if you go to good college, I think the better colleges, what they have over the lower down colleges, the fact that they have great alumni networks. You meet good people. Again, the idea of community, right? So I feel like if you can figure out a way around the content, or at least find some online digital way where you can do the curation, you can get everything done at and obviously find a place for community as well. You can go through college paying very, very little amounts of money, right? And you can make friends, you can get all the rewards, and you can essentially have this alternative to college. And like my hypothesis at that point was that the alternative to college, whichever digital alternative to college or university that pops up, is probably not going to look like an educational platform. It's probably either going to look like a game or it's going to look like community software, right? Because hey, if you want to be great at Photoshop, just join a community of like people who do Photoshop, right? Just be inside of that. So we made that hypothesis, and in that hypothesis, the GPA concept doesn't make any sense because you're essentially being graded by like real estate agents. That's how I see it, right? So it's of no value, and it doesn't like connect, and especially the MBAs, right? Like if I like take a thought experiment, right? I want you to like compete with professional swimmers, right? This is like the Olympics. You're going to swim. It's a year later. You start preparing now, and I never let you touch a pool. You're not allowed to touch a pool. You're not allowed to touch a river, ocean, no water body. Instead, I give you like a pile of books. I do group discussions on like swimming and what stroke to use.
What stroke,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. So and you never get to touch a pool. What do you think realistically happens a year later when you like enter the pool? Chances are, especially if you've never like been in a pool before, you are going to drown. You're going to use all the theory in the world, but you are going to drown. Right? So it's the same with kind of MBAs and business, right? Like you're learning how to do group discussions, work with fake money, hypothesize, but you're not learning how to actually run a business because it's a completely different ballgame. Infinite number of variables, things move over time, things change. Right. So I feel like the concept of I feel like Twitter, for example, is a way better MBA than the MBAs itself, right? So that was my hypothesis. I found a bunch of people that also believed in that hypothesis, that were frustrated with college. We built this community together, and now the community picks itself up. So technically, like in the past, you've seen creators and creators' audiences. Here in our sort of the Avalon army, as we call it, sure, I was a creator in the past, but I barely put out any content now. It's the community that carries each other forward. So it's no longer the followers and like, following and the status games. It's just like people helping each other out, which is really cool to see. I think we didn't expect it to take this form when we started, but I think the community has been the greatest thing that we've built, and they've all helped each other.
I think the online and offline communities, and they're coming together. I'm seeing this locally in different cities across the, across the country and the world. If you have a community, and I work with one, I podcast with one, and I understand that, it's great to have a community, whatever a specific niche you're talking about, you can grow. I'm going to tell you that Einstein said this, and it's very relatable to what you said. He said, everyone's a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it's stupid. So
Bingo.
you just got to be in your pool and you got to understand what it is that you want to do and grow as a community. That's fantastic. You want to shout out to everybody about the sort of experiences and workshops that people can join your community for and understand and grow in the digital space?
Sure. I think, look, we've kind of grown out of just being about, design or, code or sales or marketing or whatever. We started growing and we've said, hey, why are we relegating, say, a community that wants to talk about anime? Why are we relegating a community that wants to talk about music or mechanical engineering? Let's bring them all together. So we built an app for it. It's called Avalon Voices.
Right.
Essentially, it allows you to join any. It's free, by the way, completely free. It allows you to join any community that you see value in. You can jump on conversations with them whenever. You can chat with them whenever. It's like, I have this WhatsApp group with the people in my building, right? Whenever there's like a
Water,
pipe that's
power
leaking,
cut, or
yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
exactly, pipe that's leaking. I'm like, hey guys, how do we fix this?
Right.
So it's like an extended version of that where you get, for example, you like Photoshop or you like sales or you like marketing, you can join those communities headed by different people, each with their own different culture and rituals, not just culture but also rituals. You can jump in and you can be a part of that community, so you don't feel alone and left out. And also you find the things that you love and you kind of get involved slowly.
That's fantastic. Your book, Pajama Profit, you want to tell everybody as to why it's a great book to read and where is it available?
It's available, I think, in every bookstore
Flipkart,
in India,
also
and
Flipkart,
yeah,
Amazon,
yeah,
online as well.
Flipkart, Amazon. Yeah, it became an Amazon business bestseller. And to be honest, I have no idea why it became a bestseller. I wrote it based on my own experience, me and my co-author, based on our experiences in college about how instead of people like jumping straight to being an entrepreneur, what if, and entrepreneurship is really risky, right? It's not something that I recommend for everybody. There's a job, there's entrepreneurship. People only see two islands. There's an island in between, and it's called freelancing. Right? You get to work on your own schedule, you get to work on your own time, but it's a lot less risky than entrepreneurship. It's the gateway, right? It's like this nice little gateway so that you don't have to take all the risk, you don't have to absorb all the risk as an entrepreneur, but you can still, make baby steps. So the book is about freelancing and how it is a career option for people who are like 18, 19, who want to give it a spin. Uh, Instead of like directly jumping into entrepreneurship and realizing, hey, this is really difficult. That's what the book's
Instead of
about. And I think
burning all
it,
your fingers and burning your bridges with the job world, it's like baby steps. That's interesting. Do you
yeah.
have these options now with Avalon, like with your workshops and everything you do as well? Can people freelance with you guys?
Yeah, I mean, A, we hire freelancers. B, we have a lot of companies that we work with who hire people that we produce. In fact, there are companies that hire people from our community. They don't even ask us. We don't like even charge them. It's like an open community for now. We'll figure out I believe that if you're giving people a lot of value, eventually you'll figure out what's the best way to monetize that value.
Monetize it.
But right now it's like open. I want to see what is the extent, like what is the unbounded extent of how much value this community can create, and all the other communities that we're now bringing onto the app, how much value can we create? And let's see that
What are
we'll
the
take it from there.
broadest brackets of the communities that you've created? Like, what are the spaces?
Sure. So we've got everything from we've got like a mechanical engineers club. We've got like sales communities, marketing communities, finance, code, and even in code there are like 4 or 5 different segments. Right? There's this camp which really loves Python. There's this camp that really loves JavaScript, and then we've got like VFX and game development. So we've got all sorts of communities. If there's something you believe in, there's probably a community for that. If there's something you're passionate about, there's probably a community for that. If there's not, if you don't find a community for that, hit us up and start one. Right? So that's how we think.
Super interesting, man. It's been an absolute fun conversation. Your final shout out to anybody who's watching this anywhere, any age. I know we're talking about the young people a lot because they form 70% of the population, but I think since you said freelancing communities, I think you can shout out to people of any age and any skill set as to how they can be part of this future digital world that we're all inevitably going to be a part of.
Sure. So I think this is more like personal advice. It's like me like putting it out there for anybody who's probably used to be my age when I was younger. Um, Look, you there's this idea that there are some careers that are great and some careers that are terrible. Right? For example, almost everyone in India will unanimously agree being a software developer is better than being a dancer. But I don't believe that's true. The thing is, if you're really passionate about dance, you'll figure out a way in this era to monetize. And if you're the top 5% or 1% of dancers in the world, you'll probably do much better than the average coder. So, like the top percentage of any kind of segment does better than the average of other segments,
Right.
right? So, just pick something you love and be obsessed with it, right? It should not feel like work to you. If it feels like, hey, I'm waking up again at 8 a.m. in the morning and going out and doing this, and I'm gonna like at 9 p.m. in the night, you're just like dreading it, and on the weekends, you're just like, thank God the week's over. I don't think you're going to be in the top 1 to 5%. You need to be obsessed. Like if you see like Mr. Beast, for example, on YouTube, he's just obsessed with the platform, right?
Yes.
So you need to have that level of obsession towards whatever you love. And if you don't have that level of obsession, either develop it or get out and do something that you might find more interesting.
It's like Dwayne the Rock Johnson, like when he's obsessed with this new character called Black Adam. He goes into something called supersets and he does like 4 of the supersets without a break. I've just started working out and I'm a huge fan of The Rock. So, I mean, whether it's YouTubers or actors or you see that top 5% anywhere, that obsession is what matters. And if you keep yourself obsessed and find a community of similarly obsessed people, that is the way
You'll
forward.
win. Yeah.
Win.
The best way to become a bodybuilder is not to join a gym because you'll probably quit. The best way to become a bodybuilder is to become friends with other bodybuilders, and eventually they'll just like ad nauseum into your head, and then you'll be like, yeah, I've heard this too many times. I need to start.
Right now.
So that's the right way to do it.
Fantastic, man. The year that wasn't 2020, it all started with that. This is going to be a final shout out. If there's one thing 2020 taught you, what would it be?
If there's one thing 2020 taught me, it is that human beings are social creatures.
In the digital world.
Yeah, no matter where you put them in an igloo, they still need like society. So
Yeah.
people say, right, like stay away from society, or like don't listen to society, but we are society. Like, you just need to find your own society. Like there are many societies that make up a larger society. So find the one that you like rather than being stuck in one that you dislike.
What is the one thing in 2020 that you learned to do that has nothing to do with visual effects, gaming, building communities? Because all that we're talking about on this very special podcast / interview, but one thing that is so crazy that nobody knows that you learned in 2020.
I actually, I mean, this is less about learning. I think more about like what I found interesting. I actually spent a lot of time at home, right? And I got married this year, so I actually figured out like usually people go into like a honeymoon phase, right? As soon as they get married. The day I got married, lockdown started and it was Bartan for me, right? So I learned how to wash vessels. I'm really good at it. I'll probably be top 1% in the world. And yeah, like I can time myself and do like 10 minutes, like the entire like both plates, glasses, and cutlery. I can do it all in record time.
Wow. Like they say, marriage is usually apocalypse, except when it happens in the apocalypse, because you learn how to do your dishes and make your wife happy. Can't be better. Wow. I'm sure any of your followers will be like, how did that creep in? Did you hire a visual effects supervisor to get another Varun to do it?
No, it had to be done all by me. Like my wife needs to be present. There's attendance in the morning, so
Women have the last word.
yeah.
Wives for sure. Thank you so much for joining us, Varun. See ya. Over and out.
This was brought to you by HT Smartcast.
HT Smartcast.